Hello. The source of the gravitational waves is the stuff that's happened. So what's up? Everyone in South Korea just got a little bit younger, kind of. So up until like now, South Korea was using the Korean age system in which you're born at age 1, and at the start of every year, you get +1 to your age. But it turns out that that's not what everybody else does, and most of the population was like, let's just do what everybody else does. And so they're switching to the international standard of age calculation, which means that virtually everybody in South Korea is suddenly younger. Age is just a number. Anyway, we have the technology. All you have to do if you want to time travel is pass legislation that says that it's now before. Speaking of legislation, let's talk about 9 unelected people who get to unilaterally determine what happens to the country. Because after almost having an okay week, the Supreme Court decided to just take a big old dookie on racial equity in America. Because on a 6-3 partisan line, which is for some reason a thing in the Supreme Court, they struck down affirmative action in college admission. Clarence Thomas, who benefited from affirmative action, was like, yeah, fuck that. Why keep doors open when you can simply shut them? Now, it's very easy to take the boring, I don't see color route here and be like, oh, wait, well, they shouldn't be looking at skin color anyway, because that's racist. Stop doing that. It's reverse racism. Never mind that there are people alive today, barely in their elder years, who lived in segregated America. Surely, there's nothing that we need to do to, help them get what's theirs. We can just throw our hands in the air and say, oh, never mind, I don't see color anymore. We don't have to do anything. It'll work itself out. Because we all know that when you ignore a problem, it goes away. Anyway, yeah, if you're one of those people that is like, I don't see color, I'm colorblind, that's why people are still calling you racist. Because you're basically saying, I'm gonna just throw my hands up in the air and ignore the history and ignore the suffering and all that stuff. A dude tried to live on a rock in the ocean, and it did not work. Chris Cameron, who goes by Cam, is a teacher and explorer who wanted to set a new world record for living on a rock in the North Atlantic. There's like this tiny rock outcropping, like very small. It's just a big chunk of granite that just sticks out of the water. And people try to live on it for a while. So he tried to go for 60 days, but after 30 days, his stuff got like washed away, and he also almost got washed away. So he called in for an evac. He's fine, and his family's very proud of his attempt. And he stayed on a rock in the Atlantic longer than I would have stayed on a rock in the Atlantic. I will say, though, that spending 60 days on a desolate rock in the middle of the ocean sounds a lot better than having to deal with the fact that Clarence Thomas gets to make decisions about the country. Science is getting wavy. As I mentioned at the outset, some stuff happened, and now there's gravitational waves. And we can now see those gravitational waves by reading the stars. For realsies, I actually already made a video on this, and many other science people have made videos on this, but we basically looked at the stars and calculated gravitational waves based on twinkles. If you have no idea what any of this means, it doesn't matter. Just get hyped because science is happening. How often do you get to read news about humanity leveraging pulsar timing arrays? That's real words. That's happening right now. Get hyped. Get hyped about the pulsar timing arrays. On this day in 1892, the Homestead Strike began. It's called the Homestead Strike. It's also called the Battle of Homestead. It's a major event in labor history in the US. Unionized laborers at a steel factory were negotiating a contract with the owner of the factory, Andrew Carnegie. And, well, he had somebody else in place at the time named Frick. So while the laborers and Frick were trying to hammer out a new contract, Frick was like, actually, nah. And he shut them out of the factory, which was a breach of the contract. And so the union was like, nope. And so they started to strike around the factory. And then Frick got all scared. And so he set up literal sniper towers and water cannons. And then he called in the Pinkertons. You know, the bad guys from Red Dead Redemption 2, or the people you call to go fetch a magic card that accidentally leaked. So the Pinkertons roll up, and because they're cowards, they try to get into the factory under the cover of night. And they try to take a boat up a river, but the laborers were like, nah, fuck that. And so a battle erupted, an actual battle between laborers and Pinkertons. And the Pinkertons lost. And as they ran away, the media took a bunch of pictures of sad-looking Pinkertons, and they were like, oh, these mean laborers kicking out private security forces. And then they ran to the governor, and the governor sent in the state militia to break up the laborers. They broke the strike, and they brought in scabs, literally using the power of the state to undermine collective action from laborers, because the state would rather undermine the laborers than ask for an oligarch to pay them slightly more money. Lightning round. Citizens in France are protesting police brutality and racism after cops killed a 17-year-old North African boy at a traffic stop. YouTube is now testing blocking videos for people who are trying to use ad blockers on their site. This is a step up from just showing a pop-up saying please stop using ad blockers. Costco is getting strict, and they're pulling a Netflix. You have to now use photo ID to make sure that you are who you are at Costco. They're yanking salvage from the Titan implosion out of the ocean, and they say that there's possibly human remains. I don't expect that that's you can really make out what the human remains are, though. Valve, the company that makes PC gaming platform Steam, is blocking game submissions that contain AI-generated content. The world's smallest handbag sold for $60,000. I mean, it was an art project. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has vetoed a bill that had bipartisan support, like total bipartisan support, and he gave basically no reason. And the reason is probably because the bill would have been ever so slightly lenient on people charged with a crime. Not convicted, just charged. There are massive heat waves pummeling North America right now, and Texas especially is getting huge heat. That's kind of not to mention the smoke that's covering like half the country. And finally for today, Nintendo has said that they're hoping to beat scalpers with their next home console by just making so many that scalping is irrelevant. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Stuff Keeps Happening. Head to stuffkeepshappening.online for sources, bonus content, and an unlimited supply of soggy popcorn. My name is Endeavorance. I'll be back on Monday. Take care and be well.